we're back. Hello, everyone. We're live. Third week in a row, we're doing a podcast during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. What's going on,
Ron? Same. A lot of the same stuff. How we had Mother's Day this weekend. That was a significant thing, right?
How was your Mother's Day?
My Mother's Day was good. I mean, obviously I did what my wife wanted me to do. Mm-hmm. But, one thing I'll never understand is women. Okay? My wife's actually a very good person. And I guess I'm very big on, like, the gift, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like I got to get her something. Mm-hmm. So I was getting some anxiety leading up to these things. Mm-hmm. I don't know if other guys feel this way or husbands and stuff, because it's just, I guess you just feel like you got to go do something. And given the situation of everything that's going on, it's kind of like, what do you get your wife? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I've gotten her flowers in the past, and she's very against the flowers. Every time I get her flowers, she's like, look, this is nice, thank you, but stupid, they die in like 7 days.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, okay, thanks. So here we are. It's like Saturday, and I still haven't figured out what to get her. Mm-hmm. So we I came up with like a stupid plan. Like it's like 6 o'clock at night on Saturday. The kids had just gotten out of the shower. They're ready to go to bed. And I literally went in our bedroom where there's like this little like cart with like art supplies in it that she hides from the kids. And I pulled out three pieces of, what do you call that paper? Like the
oak tag or construction paper?
Construction paper, right? It was 3 different colors, right? Mm-hmm. One was pink, one was green, one was like red. And I literally wrote on it, Dear Mommy, and then a big blank space, and then under that was Happy Mother's Day, love you, and then one from each of my kids. So then I, she didn't know this was happening on some level. I pull all the kids out of the den where they're sitting on the couch with her. Yeah. Because you can't get away from each other with everything that's going on. And I pulled them into the bedroom, and I literally handed each kid a crayon, and they just, on each letter, drew whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I lined them up in my bedroom, and I took pictures of them, and I was like, well, this is the best I got. This is the best I got right now. So then I went upstairs, and I printed all the photos out, which they all came out really nice. And I literally, the morning of Mother's Day, I woke up, I started cooking. I don't even think I started cooking breakfast yet. My daughter, who just can't stop talking about things, was like, get mommy's cards. So I went upstairs. I grabbed all the cards. I brought them down. I basically handed her and some of them were crinkled up because like Mila.
The kids.
Yeah, Mila's like a year and a half old. She looks at the paper, like she just starts crinkling it up. I'm like, no, grab her hands. And I handed it over to her, thinking to myself, she's going to hate this, and she's going to tell me, like she's told me before, that I don't think of her, and I'm a terrible husband, and blah, 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 blah. She loved it.
Nice.
She was over the moon.
Wow.
Over the moon. And I'm sitting here going, I don't understand. I could have walked, I could have gave her the keys to a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. She would have been less happy.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, amazing. Yeah. It's just women are, I guess my wife is different.
Like you said, you'll never understand women.
No. How about you?
Yeah, ours was good. I did something very similar. Normally I'd, like when Sam is out, or if I could get the kids out, I'll do something, but obviously everyone's on lockdown. So I same thing. I got a couple pieces of paper and some crayons, and I had the kids draw a picture, and I
seems
wrote,
to be the go-to.
And Sam knew what was going on. She's in the house. Like if she sees me take the kids into a room, like some art supplies, she knows. She's like, all right, something's up, obviously. That's not normal behavior for me. So I gave her that. And we just hung out. There's nothing to do.
Yeah, I hear that.
The weather sucked. The weather's at least turning now, which is nice. You can go outside and do things. It's funny. The kids don't mind. Like if we throw the kids outside and we don't tell them it's cold,
right?
they'll just go play. But we're the ones suffering. We're the ones, like, this is cold, this is stupid, this sucks.
Especially on the water. You live right on the water. You must get.
Yeah, and it's windy because we have the park right next door. So if there's a like a northwest or northeastern breeze, whatever it is, coming from that direction, there's nothing blocking it. Our house is the first house.
It's like being in an open field. Well, you technically are in an open field.
Yeah, in the winter, the wind comes from that direction. In the summer, it's more from the other direction. So usually in the summer, it's not. In the summer, it's nice. There's a little breeze that keeps the bugs and stuff away. Yeah. But nothing crazy. In the winter, though, like, we'll get hammered sometimes.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But it was good. And now, like I said, now we're happy the weather's turning. So starting to get the kids outside more. We're starting to get outside more. Yeah. Do things, which is nice.
Yeah, things are inching back to a sense of normalcy in the country. I mean, other states are starting to open up. The first major sporting event was this past weekend.
The UFC.
Mm-hmm. So
that was no fans, right?
No fans. It was weird. It was in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. There was no fans. They tested everybody. One of the fighters from Brazil, Jacare Souza, actually did test positive, and I don't know what they did with him, but I know he tested positive, so he couldn't fight. But it was weird, man. It's like you're used to like watching these things, and I'm a big UFC fan. You're used to watching these things like with a packed house and everyone's going crazy, and like you heard like the fighters breathing.
It's crazy.
The fighters heard the commentators commenting. There's actually one fighter who credits one of the commentators because he was talking about like checking a leg or something like that. Check his leg, check his kick. And
because the commentators sometimes be like, oh, he's got him in a headlock. Now to get out, he's got to do this.
Well, Daniel Cormier is a fighter. He's one of the best fighters in the UFC, and he was commentating at the fight with Joe Rogan, and I forget the third guy's name. It'll come to me, but he's sitting there saying, check the leg, do this, do that, the other thing, and the fighters are hearing him.
So they did it.
When in a normal situation, it's probably so loud you hear nothing.
That's interesting. That's the only sport that's like that, though, where you're commentating, and there could be an advantage because of the commentating that they could hear.
Maybe. I mean, they're talking about a lot of weird things, though, like with baseball, football. I don't think fans are going to return to stadiums anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen for at least until January.
Well, you mean if they're going to allow fans in stadiums?
Yeah, it's like the events are going to be thrown very similar to how the UFC is doing it, and I'm sure what the UFC is doing is sort of serving as a model for what everyone else is going to do, like what's working, what's not working. Like Dana White's probably talking to the NFL and Major League Baseball, and they're discussing how it all works. I mean, it's just.
Well, there's a couple of factors. There's the league itself, or the organization itself, what their rules are going to be, and there's the state that the event's taking place in. Yes. So if you have a state like New York, it's clearly you're not going to have fans. Yeah. I don't see how Cuomo allows that.
Yeah, they used to have fights at MSG and Barclays in Brooklyn, and that's probably not going to happen for a long time.
Not with fans.
Maybe not at all in New York, because New York
does it
is
make
so
sense
locked
to even
down.
have it there if there's no fans? I mean, theoretically, you could just have a ring in a gym.
So you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this because I don't think you follow the UFC, but Dana White, when all this went down, he bought an island that is in international waters. So there's no law, and he's building a stadium.
So he could have fans?
So he could have fights on the island, and he's calling it Fight Island.
That's pretty wild.
So this summer, I think it's supposed to be done within the next 30 days or something like that. It's going to be ready to hold events.
That's awesome.
So he's never going to have a problem, because what he's saying to himself is, okay, this might not be the end of this pandemic, right? This pandemic might have a resurgence in the future. So if it does, I'm not stopping my operation for this pandemic bullshit. And Dane is very frank. I don't know how they got the ESPN deal recently, because that man he says it how it is, uses profanity.
Yeah.
He's probably the coolest and one of the most intriguing entrepreneurs of our time, in my opinion. I fucking love him. But he's building the island because in the future you don't know if there's going to be another breakout. So he said, fuck it. I'm going to go buy my own island. I don't have to worry about anyone's bullshit. And I could fly people out of countries, the fighters.
Yeah.
Get them
I would assume
island.
he's still not going to have fans.
I don't know.
I mean,
man.
he could, but that would be...
He could, but that would be nuts. I mean, maybe that... Because here's the deal. It's not just what they make on the pay-per-views. It's what they make on the gate.
Yes.
If Conor McGregor comes to town, you know how much money they're making on a gate?
Well, how many people does the average UFC stadium hold? Do you know?
I don't know, but I could tell you that I've looked at prices before to go.
How much is it for a ticket?
Like that front row is like $15,000 to $20,000 a seat.
Oh wow.
The front row, not the front row, the front group. Like if you're like within a few seats of like the ring, like maybe 5 rows back, everything's like $15,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 probably for the front.
Oh, so they're making tens of millions on a fight from the gate. I would assume.
Their
I mean, if you hold 30,000 people,
let's look at it.
and you get in the first few rows, you get 10 to 15 or 15, 20,000.
Let's Google highest.
And the rest of the tickets are even $100 a
gate.
piece.
The highest UFC gate ever. Paid attendance was 15,648 people.
So 15,000. So you're
17 gross sales, $17,188,894.
All right.
On the gate.
So that's nice, but I'd have to imagine in the realm of the UFC, it's not 17 million's not making or breaking it. The majority's got to be advertising and the pay-per-view.
Well, then there's the pay-per-views, right? So
Yeah.
if you sell, let's say you sell on an average event, I think they're doing like 400,000 pay-per-views, right? So 400, 1, 2, 3 times, I think they're $69.99 a piece, 27,996. So it's not.
That's the pay-per-view.
That's the pay-per-view.
Plus,
but if like a Conor McGregor's fighting and they're selling 2 million pay-per-views, they're making hundreds of millions in one shot.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned Dana White being an entrepreneur you look up to. Yourself as an entrepreneur going through this, where's your head at? What are your thoughts? How are you dealing with it?
I don't fucking care about this thing anymore. I'm going after it. I can't. Part of it is that it is very unlike me to sit in a house and play daddy. I know that sounds terrible and it sounds like I'm a terrible person, but I'm being as honest as I can be. I was not built to sit in one place all day.
Yeah.
But
would you say, so that's now.
If I'm not doing something, progressing, getting to the next level in some way, shape, or form, I get a huge sense of anxiety and I get very, very upset. And you know what, like, pacified it for a little bit was like the Peloton. I was like, okay, because I need that, like, I need a physical outlet.
Yeah.
And I need to go to work. If I don't have those things, I'm not happy.
So so we're 2 months into it, and that's your mindset. How was the whole 2 months the same mindset for you, or has that changed?
So, in the beginning,
in regards to work,
in the beginning,
business.
it was very much like, okay, maybe for the first week, I was like, all right, I'll just spend some time with my family and enjoy myself here, and you know. And it's not that I don't enjoy my time with my family. I love spending time with my family. It's actually a major, it's a major point that I'm making to myself now in my early 30s that I don't want to be on all the time. I want to turn it off maybe a few times a week or a day or whatever it is, and really give my wife and my children the attention that they deserve. But I can't do that every day.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's like, okay, the first 2 weeks, it's like, okay, this sucks. You know, I'll do the things. First week it was, this sucks. Then like the next 2 to 3 weeks, it was like, all right, let me get shit done around the house. that needs to get done, right?
Yeah.
Like my wife's lease was up on our car. I was like, you know what? Let's take care of this now.
Yeah.
Get another car. I power washed my whole house.
Mm-hmm.
I cleaned it up, got it ready for spring. Don't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was like, okay, I need like a good form of exercise. I was out running in the neighborhood a lot, which was great. But I mean, at 33 years old, I'm not old, but my ankles started to hurt, my knees. It was like, I don't need to like these residual effects.
Yeah.
Like what else can I look into? So then I found the Peloton, and that was like a whole new thing. Like, okay, let's get the Peloton, let's get it in the house. And it's been great, not just for me, but for my wife too. You know, my wife's with kids all day. It's very difficult for her to, when the kids go to sleep or before they wake up in the morning, get to the gym. It's like a whole process. You get in the car, you got to drive to the gym. It's 15 minutes. Then you get to the gym, throw your stuff in a locker. That's 5 minutes. Then you're in there, you're working out. And then you get home. By the time you wrap it all up, it's like an hour and a half. It's like an hour and a half, maybe an hour, 45 minutes. So the Peloton is great, man. You literally, at any given point in time, I mean, even last night, I'll give you an example. Last night, I sent videos actually to you and the guys last night. I'm sitting in my house. I put my kids to sleep, and I'm shot. I'm tired. It was a long day. I was in the office doing my thing. I'm like, you know what? There's no way I would ever get in a car at this stage of the day, 9:30 at night, and go to the gym. I just would never do it.
Yeah.
So I literally walked up the stairs to my office where the Peloton is, and I sat in my office chair and I stared at the Peloton. Stared at it for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then I was like, fuck it. I got on it and just you start going. Next thing you know, 45 minutes later and 915 calories later, I feel good, you know? So it's awesome for that. But I don't know what it is, man. Like, it's hard. I mean, cycling is no joke. I can honestly say with 100% certainty, I have, and maybe the only thing that I've never tried that would give me the same workout is CrossFit. But I'll never do CrossFit.
Or swimming. I don't know. I've never tried swimming. That seems like it'd be hard.
Probably. I sink like a rock though.
So I think that's the yeah.
When I tell you, the bottom line is this: I have never sweat like that. I've never gotten a workout like that. I never burned that many calories in that amount of time. Going all the way back to like high school wrestling. High school wrestling, I used to walk out of the wrestling room drenched.
Yeah.
And in 45 minutes, I am drenched.
Yeah. I mean, working out at home, whatever it is, whether you're just running, doing push-ups, pull-ups, you have something like a Peloton, I think unless you're like a real, gym hardo where you want to build muscle and stuff, once people start doing that and discover that, I think it's a lot better.
Yeah.
But I think most people went through the progression you did, which was at first you enjoy the time off. Then you start to say, okay, like let me keep busy, and you start taking care of lots of projects and other things around the house that you've delayed or you've always wanted to do.
Yep.
And then you start to get restless. And I think now everyone's at that point where they're getting restless, and that's why I'm hopeful that Governor Cuomo in New York here at least realizes that, and he's not going to, you hear things like in LA, they're extending the lockdown for 3 more months, and that's crazy. I don't know how people are going to go for that.
They didn't even have a lot of cases in LA, right? It wasn't even like a hot spot or anything like it was nowhere near New York. New York will be open before LA.
I mean, I hope. You never know. They could follow suit, but anyway, so...
By the way, the Swedish model is not working. I don't know if this is off topic or I don't know where you were going, but apparently there's a lot of people in Sweden now that are getting very sick. The older population.
Well, time will tell, right? I mean, you have... So if you talk to like anyone who's in science or a doctor, any field where they do studies for like medical studies, you always need a control group and then different groups to compare against each other, right? You could say what we're doing is working great. All the data says working great. Well, doing nothing, the data might be better. Or doing something different.
Do you know what? Because I always hear double-blind placebo study. Do you understand all that or no? Can't elaborate.
I mean, I know what it is, but not well enough where I'm confident enough. I've heard what they are. Yes, I'm not confident enough to actually say it though, because I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But But anyway, so what I was getting at was a lot of people are now getting restless. What I wanted to ask you, though, just getting back to the entrepreneur thing, is have you changed from a work standpoint, having the time off to kind of reflect and think about things? Have you started up doing exactly what you were doing before, or has your business changed at all? Have you retrospectively looked at anything and said, these are some things we could be doing differently, whether it's because of the pandemic or not?
For me, it's been all about buttoning up all those things that we've always wanted to do in our business that I never had the time to get to. I mean, when it comes to what we do in our business, for me, I'm like the techie geek guy who gets into like all of our stuff and does a lot of the organizing and the posting and all that. And that stuff, especially because after this, I think there's going to be a heavy push to a virtual setting. It needs to be extremely buttoned up. And that's kind of what I've been paying attention to and why we're going to move in that direction moving forward very, very, very strongly in the future, because that's really where it stands. But I mean, my thing is, I want to get back to, I want to get back to work. I want to get back to dealing with people. I want to get back to selling houses. And I want to be active again. Yeah. There's going to be a way to make a lot of money in this, after this whole thing. I think from a real estate agent standpoint, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. A lot of the brokerages are going to shut down. A lot of agents aren't going to renew their license. And a good large majority of the real estate agents on Long Island are people who are much later on in their career, and they will not adapt because they just don't understand how. They never had to. Yeah. And there's going to be a shift from, if those people were doing the majority of the business, and you're a homeowner now, now you're probably looking more at how are these people pushing this property digitally rather than the old traditional methods, because I don't really want to do an open house. I don't want to have people in my home. I don't want to do showings if I don't need to, what things do you have? What can you do to, make an in-person showing, the third, fourth showing for a potential buyer, so that I know that I'm not just letting people in my house willy-nilly, that might be the next 18 months of our life. Yeah. And a lot of those things that are going to transpire in the next 18 months across all industries, not just real estate. This is everything, everything. The changes that are made in the next 18 months are likely going to stay permanently. So on the last episode, I don't know if we talked about it in the last episode, but we talked a lot about people moving out of the city and deurbanization, which is still something that people are talking a lot about.
Not just talking, it's happening.
It's happening. I mean, we rented a house in West Hampton to people who lived on the Upper East Side. The guy's a hedge funder. They're coming out here. They're seeking refuge out here. They're coming out here way earlier than they normally would for a summer rental home. But those changes are going to happen, and they're going to happen with people going, companies figuring out that they don't need office space anymore. They're going to change the way they do things, and those things are going to be they're going to be permanent. Yeah,
to an extent, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to become a new norm, and people are going to deal with it.
I hate that phrase, by the way, new normal. Everyone's saying it.
Yeah, I know.
I even say it.
I know.
It just annoys, like new normal.
I know, but it is. I mean, watching the UFC, everybody's got gloves on. Everybody's got masks on, except for the fighters. Yeah, it's weird, man. It's a weird thing, but it's gonna happen. It's what it is. I mean, I still don't think we're anywhere near coming out of this thing. I think we've got a lot to learn about it. I think scientists don't even know.
Well, we'll see.
So these precautions, I think, are warranted to some degree. But then there's that question mark of how you're going to live your life.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I guess my mindset, and just from a business standpoint, was, yeah, it's definitely. I think it's a huge opportunity. It is good in a lot of senses because there will be a lot of agents leaving the industry, so the cream will rise to the top. But it's also scary for sure. I mean, but that's no matter what industry you're in. The nice thing about the real estate industry is there's going to be, that industry is not going away. You know, it's people need a place to live, so there's going to be transactions. You just have to make sure you're working to get a piece of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, it seems like, I don't know. What I hear is just from the news. It's not, I mean, there's no research or anything beyond that. But it seems like there are a lot of states opening back up for business and getting back to normal. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of states that aren't. So I guess
supposedly, too, if you remove New York, I saw some graph, I don't know if it's accurate, where if you remove New York from the curve, the virus is still accelerating its spread. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's because you could see two different sources and have two completely different data points of information.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell what is happening, but it's definitely interesting. I think everyone's obviously, the uncertainty is causing a lot of fear for everyone. But you just have to try and keep a positive attitude and just stick to some type of routine, whether it's work or whatever. Keep your mind off things. I personally am not watching the news as much anymore.
Restaurants, I think, are going to change the most. I think that's where we're going to see a huge change in how they do business. So there was this model with restaurants previous to this that kind of sort of came about with like the DoorDashes and the Uber Eats of the world.
Yeah, that was hurting restaurants anyway.
Yeah, so those, but what was happening was there were restaurants out there that didn't actually have seating. They didn't have a place to go to sit down at a table, have a waiter or a waitress wait on you. They were just a kitchen.
Yeah, and that's what food trucks were becoming a huge thing. That was growing popularity.
Yes, they're all the way out east, big time too. So maybe that becomes a big change. Maybe that's how. Maybe instead of people going out to eat, they're going to order in.
Yeah,
and have company over. I mean, listen, would you rather be sitting at a table with, you and a friend, and let's say you and Sam go out to dinner with another couple. Would you rather sit at a table in a restaurant with 200 people in it?
Yeah.
Or would you rather maybe invite them over and order from that restaurant? Maybe that's a new normal, right?
Yeah. From a safety perspective, you'd rather be at home. But then the kids at home, and there's a reason you go out too.
Yeah, I agree with that too, just to get away.
Yeah, which is you're still gonna need, like, you can't just stay locked up in your house at some point. So maybe you go to a restaurant, let's put somewhere, and you'd be like, fuck it, let's go. Like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
If I get Corona, so be it. We got to go out to eat. We got to get out. Let's get someone to watch the kids. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as, like, you need to get back to work.
They're opening up a drive-in movie theater out in Patchogue, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. That may come. That's cool. I mean,
that's different.
It's so comfortable to watch a movie from home now, but that's a cool experience.
Yeah.
It's be interesting to see. Is it one of those things you do once and you're like, all right, that was cool, not again, or will it be fun?
Well, what if you go to the movie theater and your windshield's dirty?
Yeah, well, you got to get it cleaned.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that maybe there's things that people just don't know about with driving movie theaters because they haven't existed. And
I've been to one when I was little. My dad's taken us.
Really?
It was a cool experience. Yeah, you get you tune it. Back then, it was you tune the AM or whatever it was radio to the station, and that's what you heard it on. And they had a little stand. You can go get popcorn and snacks and stuff, bring back to the car.
That's cool.
And you watch it. It was cool. I mean, I remember it now from a kid. I don't remember ever like going. So I remember that. I don't remember like ever a time I went to the actual movie theater with my dad or like, brothers and sisters. I was little and having being a memorable experience. But the drive-in, I vaguely remember. Yeah. It's cool. When you're a kid, something like that is just, it's like, wow, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. That's cool.
To that point, there'll be a lot of businesses. So people that are entrepreneurs will see a lot of opportunities. Mm-hmm. And they'll create businesses that, right, if there's a need, they'll create a business that can fulfill that need, and
that's what I'm saying. There's going to be things are going to change. Things are going to change, and they're going to adapt. And the people who sit here and complain about all the shit that's going on, and they don't change, they're screwed.
Yeah.
But the people who embrace it, adapt, make changes, they're going to do great.
Yeah. Well, if you think
their stock is gonna rise while everyone else's falls.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Well, if you think about it from a real estate perspective, right? So what is the seller's need is they need to sell their house for whatever reason. The buyer's needs, they need to buy a house for whatever reason. Obviously, there's safety concerns. Now, it used to be just put your house up for sale, buyers come in, sellers let them in, whatever. Now that's changed. There's safety concerns. So what's happening now? How are people adapting in the real estate market? Well, the seller just does. They don't want open houses, so that just anyone can come in. They don't even want people like, hey, I'm interested in a house. Can I come see it? Because you're having a lot of traffic through your home. So from a seller's perspective, it's I need to sell my house, but I need to do it safely with minimal traffic. So how are we adapting? We're adapting by getting Matterports, which is like Google Earth inside the house, getting more video footage, floor plans for everything, a lot more virtual content, so that when a buyer is interested, the first step is no longer seeing the house in person. It's you get to look at the floor plan. You get a lot more detailed photos, video footage. You could do virtual walkthroughs. Right, and you get a.
You know what I wonder, if this persists long enough and it gets crazy enough, like if let's say there's a second wave next year, and it becomes an issue again, and will real estate adopt VR, virtual reality?
So
it's there. The technology with Oculus Rift is there.
So it will. That's just building on the stuff that we're talking about now, right? So right now you're doing virtual walkthroughs, but it's still on a 2D screen. Eventually, you'll do virtual walkthroughs on a 3D screen, and again, you're still going to see the house in person. I think that's always going to happen. But yes, at a certain point, it'll be step 1 is you do the 2D stuff. Step 2, you do the virtual 3D stuff through Oculus Rift. That'll be interesting because either you'll need to have that at home, or the real estate office will have to have that technology. And the buyer will
it'll
have to
be
come
something
to the
that
office.
like your photographer would somehow do. They would have to have equipment that would somehow capture the space in virtual reality. Then you would have to put that on the internet, and then they would have to basically go to a website, throw on their Oculus Rift, and they could walk through the house.
Yeah, that's also.
It's basically Matterport with.
Would you want, though, so if you're selling your home, would you want a virtual Oculus Rift of your home just on the internet? People can.
So maybe not for Long Island. Definitely for the city. They're doing it in the city.
But I'm saying a new development maybe. But I'm saying if it's your own personal home, you don't just want it out there. I think that the agent or the brokerage still has to control that content. And if you want to see it, great. But you have to contact them.
Maybe
it's not just available.
Maybe it's encrypted, and they have to log into a portal, and the login and password's only good for 30 minutes for them to go see it. And then once that happens, it shuts off. They can't get back in.
Yeah.
Unless they are given access again.
Or you put on yours and you walk through it with them.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Encrypting something and making it so that you only have limited time access. I mean, people are doing that all the time. But definitely for the city, I mean, because like Matterport, you could understand. So here's the thing, right? Think about it like this. Matterport, you could understand the space really well, but you don't know what the view is like when you look out the window.
Yeah.
If you're buying a house, let's say that's on like the sound, and you want to understand like, the views of, let's say, New York City from Great Neck, something like that, right? Or if you're in the city and your view is uptown and you need to understand that view in order for you to make a good decision to buy, Oculus Rift could probably provide that, and Matterport can't.
What I like about the Oculus Rift is that when you put on the Oculus Rift, you have the virtual experience. With the Matterport and the virtual stuff, the experience is different depending on the device you're viewing it through. So again, the Oculus Rift is through the Oculus Rift. It's what the experience is going to be.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of virtual showings, virtual listing appointments, etc., and people are on their phone, and a Matterport on your phone is not good. We have a big 24-inch computer, HD computer monitor. That's a nice experience.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing it that way, it's really sufficient. But people who are doing this stuff on their phone because you didn't need this stuff. I mean, I mentioned, on the podcast before, I didn't have a computer at home, a desktop or a laptop. I didn't need one. We used our phones for everything, and I had a computer at the office, right? But in this world now, you kind of it's just kind of like an essential piece of equipment.
You need to be connected.
You need to have at home because it makes the difference in the experience.
That's interesting. I like that idea, the VR thing.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Got my wheels spinning now.
We'd have to look into what it takes to build out the virtual space so that you can actually put on the Oculus Rift and view it. Like Matterport, you know what it is. It's a special camera, gets all the pictures.
Yeah, but if you could provide let's not talk about it on here. We'll talk about it after. Elon on Rogan, you listen?
Yeah. Well, I listened to maybe the first 20 minutes, not the whole thing, but I mean, I don't know him. I love Elon Musk, so I follow him on Twitter and stuff.
He's one of the most interesting guys you could possibly listen to. I mean, if there is an alien or a higher being on Earth, he is it, man. He is it. But a lot of the things that he's talking about are extremely far-fetched.
Are they, though?
The Neuralink thing, the claims he was making are a little crazy. I mean, if he could do them, they're game-changing, complete, earth-shattering technology that is off the charts, incredible, and is going to help people all over the world. But
so essentially, the Neuralink is you can basically hook up a computer, for lack of a better phrase, to your brain, and it could help substitute some processing.
What he's saying is basically that we are cyborgs to a certain degree, and when he says that, he's referring to our phones. Our access to information and things is so much different than it was at one time. I mean, think about the average guy in the 50s, right? Who what happened there? The average guy in the 50s who gets an idea and he wants to do something, anything, whatever. Think about the research you had to do. You had to actually go to a store, the library, crack open books, start reading, talk to people. It was a totally different world. Today, I mean, you could argue you're literally a YouTube video away from doing anything.
Yeah, no, the access to information for that's. I mean, I've done a bunch of construction projects on my house just by YouTubing how to do it.
Exactly. So, what his claim is that we are technically cyborgs right now. Our ability to communicate with people and reach information has never been better. So basically, imagine this in your head.
Yeah.
So
you no longer have to type it into your phone. There's a link where you can. But
he's getting crazy where he's talking about you're not gonna have to talk to people.
Why
the act of talking.
I don't like
the act
that.
of talking. You're not gonna need to do it. You and I could just stare at each other and just disseminate information.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
But when he says things like we're gonna have the first Neuralink within the next 12 to 24 months, in a human brain hooked up. He's so smart. Is there that big of is he that delusional because that time frame.
So when
it's like he's saying, listen, it might happen in my lifetime. He's saying 12 to 24 months. So
here's what I could tell you from a guy who has worked and dealt with neurosurgeons previously. There is no way he's going to be able to do the things he claims to do. He's talking about taking someone who's fully paralyzed and restoring them back to being better than what they would have been. He's talking about taking someone who's blind and giving them full-blown eyesight.
Well, that would be
as I understand it, there's two things. All right, this is high-level stuff here. There's 12 cranial nerves in your brain. Those 12 cranial nerves control something in your body. And when neurosurgeons do surgery, they do everything they can, and they are trained to avoid the cranial nerves and stay out of their way and not cause any further trauma to them. Because if they do, you're going to lose more of whatever that cranial nerve controls. So if you're working around the optic nerve and, so much as the suction catches it, you can lose eyesight for good.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
he's talking about taking an implant, putting it in your head, and it basically, the way he describes it, looks like an octopus. So all those little tentacles coming off his implant, they're directed towards these nerves, and they're supposed to.
Are they physically touching the nerves though, or they're just interacting with different sensors in the brain that then interact with the nerves?
As things stand right now, in order for you to stimulate a nerve, you need to create electricity and send like an electrical pulse through that.
Yeah.
That's the way a cochlear implant works. It takes the sound, turns it into an electrical stim stim pulse that gets sent down to the 22 electrodes that just play like a piano in the cochlea, sends a message to the auditory nerve, and you're good. But in that situation, there's nothing wrong with the auditory nerve. There's something wrong with everything leading up to the auditory nerve that brings the signal to the auditory nerve. So you're stimulating the auditory nerve using your cochlea and an electric pulse that your brain can then disseminate that information. There's also...
See, that doesn't make sense to me. I would think that if there would have to be something wrong with the auditory nerve for that solution to actually be able to fix it. If what's broken essentially is not the auditory nerve, it's something else, then how does stimulating the auditory nerve even help?
Because you don't understand the process of sound getting to the auditory nerve. Starts in the outer ear, goes to the middle ear, goes to the inner ear, and then the inner ear cochlea, it's wrapped around the auditory nerve, and it gives it like a message that the auditory nerve then takes to the brain, and it gets interpreted.
Yeah.
But in a situation like the optic nerve, your eyes are gathering light that's refracting off of walls and everything, and it's interpreting it in your brain. So if you were to do a cochlear implant on your optic nerve, it wouldn't go on the nerve; it would go on the eyeball. So you instead of fixing the nerve, I see what
you're saying. The implant, there's two pieces to the implant. There's the one piece that's on the ear, and the other piece is essentially connected to the nerve, so it helps the communication process.
What I'm saying is your ear, your outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, is essentially your eyeball. They're gathering information, different kinds of information. One is sound, one is vision, and it's collecting that data and giving a message to the nerve. The nerve.
But now, in the sense of the cochlear implant, it's no longer the ear; it's the cochlear implant that's collecting the data and sending it to the nerve.
Right. So his
you
neural
would need to have
link
something
on the eye and not
that actually collects the data
and not in the brain.
You're basically bypassing the ear and using technology to bring the information right to the nerve so it can be transmitted to the brain.
His neural link is basically going to have, if he wants to restore eyesight, eyeballs.
Yeah, well, it depends what the reason for the loss of vision is. If you got stabbed in the eye, yeah, it's not going to help.
Which, they might have something like that.
But if there's nerve damage, I guess, maybe it helps.
They might have something like that in the future that does this, but...
Google Glasses.
You're talking about... That's actually a dead
Slap
technology.
on your Google Glasses and connect it to your
I wanted those things so bad back in the day. But put it this way. I mean, if I was to explain it to you like in terms of space travel... It's like making a claim that within our lifetime we're gonna go to Jupiter and colonize it. As like Mars, he keeps talking about colonizing Mars. That might actually be something we could do.
Yeah.
In our lifetime, I don't know.
But what's funny is he's saying so. Elon says at our current pace of innovation, we will not be on Mars in our lifetime, but in 12 to 24 months, we'll have the neural link hooked up.
And that's about as far off as saying in 12 to 24 months we're going to Jupiter.
Wild.
From what I know, because the neurosurgeons, they don't and doctors in general and neurology, they understand a lot about the brain. They don't understand everything about the brain. It's a complete mystery. It's the one organ in the body that we don't understand. Think about it. You could do a lung transplant. You could do a heart transplant. You could do all kinds of things. Can't transplant a brain.
Yeah.
A complete central nervous system. It's impossible.
Until Neuralink.
Who knows? Who knows?
What do you think about Elon, how he's, I forget the name of the county that Tesla's in. It's Alameda County or something. No, he said, listen, against county regulations, we're open for business. He's like, I'll be on the assembly line with everyone else. I'm not asking anyone to do anything I wouldn't do.
I'm sure he's got all the proper precautions in place. I think I don't know what I think, because part of me thinks he's no different than us. He's restless and wants to get back to it, which God bless him, he should. But to that point, are you then putting people at risk that don't deserve to be at risk?
Well, he's not. That's the thing. So if he says, listen, if you work for me, you must be there.
He's definitely fully liable, 100%.
Then you're putting, but if he says, listen, it's open. If you want to come to work, you can. If you don't, continue to collect unemployment. The state and federal government are offering it. That's fine too. What's wrong with that?
I don't know, because I mean, who's really going to show up? I mean, especially in certain states, from what I understand, unemployment is more than what you get paid.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So why would you get up and come to work?
Yeah,
with the extra $600 subsidy, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I like Elon. I think he's good. I think he's a bit of a cowboy in certain ways. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's right and wrong. I got an invitation to go to a birthday party this weekend with my immediate family, and there's going to be 25 to 30 people there. I'm not really comfortable doing that right now. I don't know. Am I crazy? Would you go?
I think it's personal. It's a personal. I don't think there's a right and a wrong. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I think for more people, it's they just don't like the idea that the government's controlling them, and they really don't have a sense of freedom, and that's why they want to get back. Revolt. Yeah, I think if you just left it up to, hey, it's your choice, you could do what you want, a lot of people probably would not go to restaurants, relax at home, collect the unemployment. Yeah. It's just the fact that they're being forced to. It's un-American. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion.
So where do things stand right now in New York with Cuomo? What he said.
There are 3 counties or something that can open up May 15th, upstate. Phase 1.
They're all upstate.
Exactly. So those are allowed to start phase 1 May 15th. And I don't know if it's like a day-by-day basis, like if May 16th, 17th, 18th, if at any point in time he can initiate phase 1 for anywhere.
I think you need to meet the 5 out of 7 criteria.
So right? So is it like, though, is he say, listen, June 1st, we're going to evaluate any other counties that meet the criteria will open up, or is that all being evaluated on a daily ongoing basis? I would hope it's a daily ongoing basis. So if any time you meet the criteria, boom, you can open up. I hope it's not like you have to wait to June 1st, then June 15th, then, just to look at the criteria. Because then why are you?
Yeah, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I could tell you that, look, we're getting phone calls for listings. People are still continuing on with life. I think
they have to.
You can't open up a retail storefront against what the governor's telling you to do.
Well, it's funny, right? You could go, everyone could go to Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, the supermarket, and you can have tons of people there, but you can't have tons of people in a retail. I mean, there is no difference from a safety perspective. It's just they're considering one a necessity.
That's true.
But from a safety perspective, what's the difference? There's none.
There's none.
Yeah. And it's not like at Walmart you can. It's not like you can only buy food and necessities. Like you can go to Walmart and buy any stupid thing that's on the shelf
and call it essential.
Yeah, well, Walmart's so they sell a widget, and there's a private business sells a widget. The private business just sells that one widget. They're not essential because that widget's not essential. But Walmart can sell it because Walmart's essential because they sell food too. I mean, so it's just like
it's going to be interesting. I'll give you an example. So because I think a lot of small business retailers, they're all going out of business. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them will. And a perfect example of that is my buddies who live in the city were telling me that yesterday. If you go to Midtown, there's a lot of storefronts that are in Midtown that are all food related. Delis, this, that, the other thing, and all of their business relied on commuters commuting in and going to work in those Midtown buildings. Of course, during lunch, coming down, going to their establishment, buying lunch or sitting down for lunch, and then returning to work afterwards. Mm-hmm. He says it's like a ghost town and boarded up retail, not coming back. Well,
that's why the city's screwed. You have local communities in the suburbs. They all those businesses, for the most part, were supported by the people who live there. In the city, so much of the commerce is supported by tourism and commuters and people that don't live there. So once you shut all that down, yeah, even if you're allowed to remain open, you're taking a huge hit.
You can't. I mean, no one's commuting,
and tons of people are leaving the city.
I
mean, they're out.
How about this? I have the other thing to talk about that's weird is school. So I know we talked about this on the last thing about Bill and Melinda Gates, but I'm hearing more and more rumblings from more and more people that it's very possible that we don't end up going back to school, or our kids don't end up going back to school until January. And I have a cousin who's a gym teacher here on Long Island. He says basically all of the gym teachers, art teachers, think of any class that you had that wasn't a core subject back in high school. All those specialty classes, anyone who was teaching them and isn't certified in math, science, English, whatever, a lot of them are going to get laid off. Imagine that you're a teacher, you go and you take that path because you're passionate about it, you love it, and any teacher you talk to, a part of that conversation is it's a secure job. People are always going, kids are always going to go to school, and it is true, kids are always going to go to some form of educational path that they need, but now you don't have a job.
So if you're a teacher with tenure, how's that work? They lay you off, you stop getting paid? I mean, you're part of the union.
I could go to my text with him. And
I don't know. It doesn't. We don't need to look it up. It's just interesting.
So what he explained was if you don't have tenure, you're falling off the roster. If you do have tenure, you're going to get laid off or furloughed. And when that position is available again, they'll take you back. Essentially, the bottom line is this, Mike. Tenure, all this stuff, it's all bullshit. Because guess what?
Yeah.
If there's no need for a teacher in the traditional sense, you're not safe.
But there's no need because the government's deciding there's no need.
I agree.
I mean, if you ask me, I think school's a necessity. Like, you need to send your kids to school for more than one reason. Forget about them just getting an education. It's so much more than that. It's just as much for the parents. And the other thing is, all right, so now you're going to, schools are closed till January, if that's the case, right? That hasn't been announced, but we're hearing that. Schools are closed till January, but businesses open back up in September. Well, what is the kid just at home by themselves all day? I mean, he can't, it doesn't even work.
How many people on Long Island are, they rely on school not only to send their kids to school
as
for them to get
daycare,
educated, but as like a daycare outlet.
I mean, you can't open business and have school closed. They don't go. It needs to be one and the same. And you can't keep business closed till January. I mean, I guess you could, but that's getting way out of hand.
Well, they just got to keep sending people money is what's got to happen. I was also told I also heard, I forget exactly where, but basically, if state and local politicians did not know that there was a federal bailout coming, they would be doing a lot more risk analysis of getting people back to work.
Yeah, well, listen, the sending people money thing works for the upper class and the middle class. The upper class doesn't need the money. They can get by until everything opens up. The lower class, the money they're sending them is fine. The middle class gets screwed.
Time out. The lower class, they're making more money than they were previously. When you take unemployment and then add the $600 that they're getting extra, they're making more money per week.
So that's what I'm saying.
Than they've ever made in their life.
It works for them. The middle class, because guess what? The middle class say, hey, listen, we'll send you $1,000 a week in unemployment. It's not enough because guess what? They need $200,000 a year to live, and that's because they work their ass off to make $200,000 a year. They earn that lifestyle, and now you're taking that.
I know
the ability for them to earn away from them. You're saying, hey, we'll give you 50. Don't worry. Well, it's like, if they're getting 1,000 a week, it's like thanks, but the 50 doesn't help me. I need 200.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm living outside my means. It's because I worked really hard and I achieved this, and now you're not even letting me go to work. You're not even giving me a shot to try and maintain it.
The problem is it's so different from place to place. I mean, if you make $200,000 on Long Island
and you have a family, 2 kids,
you are paycheck to paycheck. If you live in middle America and you're making $200,000, you're living high off the hog.
Yeah, 4,000 square foot house probably.
Yeah, so these federal, like doing things from such a high level in this country, it's impossible because it's so different from place to place.
That's why the government should step out and just let people. You can say, listen, if you don't feel safe, and you're concerned about your health and your safety, we will help you. We'll give you unemployment, whatever. If you want, go back to work. I mean, we're not here to tell people what they can and can't do, right? Mm-hmm. If you go back to work, it has to be within reason. You have to wear a face mask, fine. You have to, take some protective measures, fine. But it's your choice, and you're not going to be penalized no matter what choice. Because if you choose to stay home, we'll help you. Mm-hmm. To me, that makes sense. Especially after such an extended period of time.
I don't know. It's very strange.
Let's get into the most recent bailout package and some real estate stats.
So this bailout package was just announced by Democrats, and they've unveiled...
In what, the Senate or?
The House.
The House.
They've unveiled a $3 trillion plus coronavirus bill. It's the 5th coronavirus response to legislation so far. Blah, 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 blah. The first thing is fiscal aid to states and local governments. We just talked about this. So they're talking about the Democratic bill provides more than $900 billion to states, local governments, as well as Indian tribes and territorial governments. That means like a Puerto Rico is in there too, to help prevent layoffs to public workers, cuts to services, or tax hikes. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, here's money, don't raise taxes on the people that live there, okay, and pay for your police officers, your firemen,
And where are they getting this money?
They're printing it off the printing press.
So they're borrowing
$3 trillion.
So ultimately, who has to pay? Who has to pay back the money? The taxpayer.
The taxpayer. So federally,
so you're not helping anything.
Federally, there's going to be a problem because they're going to need to collect a lot of money, which means our taxes are going to go up, either federally or locally or both. The second piece of it is direct payments. It adds a second round of direct payments to individuals. And makes those benefits more generous than the earlier round, which limited payments for dependent children to $500. Instead, it provides new payments of $1,200 per family, up to $6,000 for a household. I believe, too, that is for families or people who make under $75,000 a year. So going back to our discussion,
it's not even helping the people who really need it.
It's not even helping the guy who makes $200,000 on Long Island and has a family and is just getting by. Okay, it's helping people in middle America.
They still need the help, fine, but it's just crazy. There's so many people still getting screwed.
That whole middle bracket, which for where we live is the majority of the population. Yeah. It has to be. Mm-hmm. Hazard pay for essential workers. It creates $200 billion in what's called a Heroes Fund that would provide a hazard pay supplement for essential workers such as first responders, healthcare workers, sanitation workers, and those at business required to stay open. I don't see the need for that.
No.
Why? So here's the deal. And this is going to be a controversial statement. Why are we giving people more money to do a job that they signed up for before this all happened? So if you're a nurse, and I'm not taking anything away from what they're doing, I think it's beautiful what they're all doing. I think they're heroes to every extent of the word. Mm-hmm. But do they really need hazard pay?
Well,
from the federal government that we don't have.
So it's, again, the point of this is to help the people that need help. If you're still employed because your job has been deemed essential, whether it's a nurse or otherwise, you're just handing them some extra money, which is great. We appreciate you, but why not give that extra money to someone who still needs it? If you still have your paycheck,
the $200,000 guy who doesn't have it to get by.
Anyone, yeah. If you're still getting a paycheck, you shouldn't need bailout money. If you're not getting a paycheck, that's who the bailout money should get allocated to.
It's true. It's interesting.
If you ask me, that's like socialism. That's now we're just paying everyone.
Exactly.
And it's politics. Hey,
Exactly.
listen, we don't want you to be mad at us. We want to get reelected. We're going to give you some money too. Because probably there's a lot of people who are like, I get it. People don't have to work, and they're still making money. In some cases, maybe more money than the nurse who's working.
Yep.
So the nurse is like, that's bullshit. I get it. There's a right to be upset there. But the solution from a political standpoint is not, well, from a political standpoint, I guess that is a solution. We'll just offer them money too, right?
Well,
but that's not the right solution.
A lot of people are talking about this election, Trump and Biden, is really going to be an election of who's giving more.
Well, Biden can't
right?
give anything. He's not elected.
So they're going to, but they're going to make promises in their campaigns that are going to be so over the top crazy.
Well, please don't deliver those promises then.
Right, exactly. But it's going to be interesting. Unemployment benefits. It extends the $600 per week federal unemployment benefits supplemental payment through January of 2021 instead of cutting it off at the end of July. Mm-hmm. So this is interesting. I'm kind of torn between this because there's not going to be a lot of jobs for people out there to go back to. So unemployment's going to be, you have a problem because with this $600, there's a lot of people all over the country who are making more money being unemployed than if they were employed.
Yeah.
To that point, we are also going to be in a situation where a lot of jobs that are lost are not going to be coming back for a while. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? And they're not even like really checking people with this stuff. They're just throwing money at people.
Yeah, but listen, it's tough. It's almost like tough love, or just life isn't fair. It's like it's just when you manipulate the situation.
Yeah. I
mean, for a lot of people, you're making it worse, and also you're just extending the pain that eventually everyone's going to feel. The least amount of manipulation is probably the better solution in the long run. But then people have to feel some pain. It's really tough. It's really tough. Because it sounds harsh to say don't help people.
I wonder if a lot of these measures would even be in existence if this wasn't an election year. So if there wasn't a motive by one side or the other to be getting elected, would they really be going this far out of their way for the people?
Well, would there have been a pandemic if it wasn't an election year?
Now we're getting
into conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Postal Service provides $25 billion for the cash-strapped U.S. Postal Service, which is expected to run out of money by the end of September.
From what I've heard in the news, that's nothing to do with the pandemic. I mean, I've heard in the paper and news. I mean, years prior, the Postal Service has been in financial trouble for a while.
Yeah. So it's funny. I think in the first bill, in an effort to get it passed, the Democrats threw in something about like a museum in Washington. Mm-hmm. So what's happening with these bills is they need to help stabilize and prop up the economy, and it's leverage. The Democrats know that Trump needs to help his people, and his name is tied to how this goes. Mm-hmm. So they basically, for lack of a better term, have him by the balls and can get whatever they want done put in these bills. So you have the actual meat and potatoes of these bills, which is stuff that is actually designed to help and help us get through this as a country. But then they're littering it with their own agenda.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense.
I don't understand.
Which really aggravates me to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. But I guess
I just don't understand. So you have the Postal Service has been in financial trouble for a long time. It's antiquated. It doesn't. In today's world, just let it go out of business. But there's a Seinfeld special on Netflix, and one of the punchlines of his joke. There's obviously a whole joke leading up to it, but the punchline was, if the Postal Service really wants to be helpful and adapt, just open the letter and email me what it says, and that's, which is kind of true. It's right. It's, I mean, why are we saving things that just no longer make sense?
I don't know. I haven't sent mail
I mean, I'll send mail and I get mail, but if you just did away with it, I would get by just fine.
Well, you know what it is?
Don't need it.
I think, believe it or not, every door direct mail.
Or just let there be FedEx and UPS. You don't need the U.S. Postal Service.
A big reason that the Postal Service is having trouble, from what I understand, is that they make a lot of their money off of the EDDM, every door direct mail.
Yeah.
And if there's not enough businesses that are using that product.
Well, and they have pensions they have to pay out.
Oh, they have tons of stuff.
Right?
Yeah. But that's all a federal.
So just let the... You could, guess what? You could still send mail. There's FedEx, there's UPS, there's privatized companies, and they'll charge. So if you want to send something, you pay the going rate, and that's it. You don't need, the Postal Service.
Housing assistance is the next bullet point. It says it provides $75 billion to states to help renters and homeowners pay mortgages, rent, and other housing costs to avoid default, with much of that money aimed at lower income people.
Fine, I get it. They need help.
Yeah, forbearance and everything that's going on. Highways and mass transit provides $15 billion for state transportation departments for highway needs and $16 billion to mass transit systems hit by massive drop of ridership and low-income fares.
That I disagree with. Just let them suffer like every other private business that can't open right now.
That's kind of like the U.S. Postal Service. They're basically saying the same thing. Like people need mail, people need highways and mass transit. I don't know. Education dedicates $100 billion to states, school districts, and universities to defray. Defray is the word. Defray. I never heard of that word. Defray additional costs associated with the pandemic. That'll be interesting. Testing to health providers.
I mean, $100 billion. Sorry, but if you just think about the numbers, how many universities and public schools are there in the United States? $100 billion. There's no way that's enough. If you split it evenly across all of them, so that's probably being given to a select few, which is probably all political, I would imagine.
I don't know. Provides testing and aid to health providers. Provides $75 billion on top of earlier outlays to test for the coronavirus. And perform contact tracing to track its spread and treatment for COVID-19. Adds another $100 billion for hospitals and other healthcare providers. So I actually saw an article about this. They're giving money to hospitals, and it's actually reported. You could look it up. The amount of money that these hospitals are getting is insane. I think Health Trust, or one of these major healthcare facilities somewhere around the country, they got something like $800 million.
Yeah.
Now, I got to think it's expensive, right, to run a hospital, but is it $800 million expensive?
Also, the problem is you're providing a financial incentive for, I don't want to say this pandemic to continue, but for them to keep testing and treating. So what is the hospital going to do from a business standpoint? It's like, hey, let's get everyone in, let's test them. We want positive tests. We want to report that, if there's like hey, this guy had COVID-19, but he was also very sick from other things. Well, cause of death, COVID-19. I mean, you're providing financial incentive for them to
not open up.
I don't want to say that the hospital wants this.
Well, think about it, right? Okay, if you're a hospital, right? You're a hospital, you're a health system, you own buildings, you owe loans on all those buildings, you have to keep the lights on, you got to pay for all the services, you got to maintain the buildings. Then now you've got tons of staff, and part of that staff includes all your doctors. So there's a huge payroll, and elective surgeries are done. So there was definitely a capital outlay for these hospitals to get through this virus, where they were buying shit ton of stretchers and beds and all that stuff. Right? So they're covering that. Then there's a cost to testing people. So there's that. I mean, but still, I feel like these hospitals are going to maybe walking away with more money than they needed out of this whole situation. Hospitals.
Yeah, what's the incentive? Not to beat a dead horse, but what's the incentive you're providing them? Are you actually giving them an incentive to work towards a solution, or an incentive to just remain status quo?
I don't know, but follow the money is usually what I say. Private health insurance providers. So provides subsidies for laid off workers to remain on their employer-provided health insurance plans through so-called COBRA benefits, and creates an open enrollment period to sign up for Obamacare, policies on state and federal health insurance changes. So that I think people still need to stay insured. That's for sure. But how's someone going to pay for COBRA if they're unemployed?
Yeah, listen, people need it. You definitely need to provide some help.
So the last thing here is which would supposedly restoring the SALT deduction is in this bill, and they're restoring the SALT deduction because Donald Trump wants a payroll tax cut. So what Trump wants to do is he wants to cut payroll taxes, but in exchange he might have to give us back that SALT deduction, which is going to be huge in blue states like New York and California, and that will change the game, specifically in the high-end market. That would be very, 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 very good, because now people can use their taxes in these highly taxed states to deduct against their income.
But it's even less now. It's even less tax revenues for states that are already in financial trouble. So
then we're going to see tax hikes. Who the hell knows? It's true. It's how are they going to pay all this back is really the question. They want to cut taxes and pay it all back at the same time and keep printing and sending money out to people.
So you have a situation where tax revenues are decreasing because of what's going on, and now you're also adding legislation that further decreases tax revenues. And there's a third part to that, which I'm drawing a blank. But so you have tax revenues decreasing because of the virus, and there's also and there's just not as many. I mean, it just and the third piece is, and you have more government spending. So you have more government spending with less tax revenues because of two different reasons. One is legislation, if this passes, and two is because businesses are just doing less business.
Yeah, I heard something floated about them, raising the corporate tax rate, but then that would drive businesses out of the country.
So it'd be the employees that get hurt. I mean, if you have to pay more in taxes, you're just going to cut payrolls or benefits.
If you're a corporation and your corporate tax rate goes through the roof, then you start moving everything offshore, and the whole Trump campaign was based on bringing everything back so you could get that corporate tax revenue.
So I'll say two things.
Which is why he passed that tax bill in
2017. It's whatever economics. I think economics 101 is supply and demand, but maybe economics 102 is there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Is this all? It all comes around somehow. But the second thing, the only silver lining in this is that a lot of manufacturing is going to come back to the United States. That is a good thing.
Specifically out of fear.
But is that going to cause inflation too? The reason manufacturing went to China is because they could produce goods cheaper. I mean, in the United States, you have unions and attorneys and all this stuff. I mean, so there's no way you're going to produce the goods at the same cost China did.
Nope.
So it's going to be a lot more expensive for goods.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have. But Trump's been throwing tariffs on people anyway, on foreign countries that we import their goods anyway. So that was supposed to make things more expensive, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
It's a big tangled web of shit.
Which is all the more reason to just stay out of it, right?
Exactly. I try to understand it. It makes no sense. Like the stock market going up, I don't get it.
No.
I don't get it. I don't get any of it.
I don't know. If there's someone who understands that.
It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. The stock market couldn't be more disconnected from the reality of what's taking place in this country.
What is it at?
24.
Well, the market's down today, a few hundred points, but all right. So we've been talking.
Yeah, but you know what they're going to do? They're going to pass the stimulus on Friday because they're voting on it, and then the market's going to shoot through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to vote no to that?
You can't. Although Mitch McConnell is apparently. But anyway, let's talk about real estate.
So we've been talking for a while. Let's give a few stats before we wrap this up. So May 1st to May 13th, 2020 compared to 2019. So new listings, May 1st to May 13th, 2020, 777. New listings to market, 2019, 1,631. It's a 53% decrease in new listings.
I believe that's more than April, though.
I think a decrease in new listings. I forget the April data.
I think it's more properties to market in the first 13 days, whatever it is, 12 days.
Oh, yeah.
Than April, because
that would make sense.
Yeah. Yep. And I think people are at the point where, I mean, listen, if you intended to sell your home, you feel still like, hey, it's spring. The house looks the best. The flowers are starting to bloom. It's spring selling season. We got to sell this house.
Yeah, well, from a buyer standpoint, there are a lot of buyers coming from more densely populated areas like Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, who want to move to the suburbs. And there's also people who had planned on buying probably for the last year, and they're waiting until the spring because kids are out of school or for whatever reason. So people moving forward with their lives. So there's buyer demand, and on the same side, there's people who want to sell for whatever reason. So it makes sense that number is ticking up, and that's a good thing for the real estate market. Inventory right now is crazy low, which is one of the reasons that housing prices are remaining stable, is there's just not a lot of housing inventory on the market.
Not a bad thing if you're a seller right now.
No, it's good. It might be. I mean, we'll have to see what the future holds. There's data points that could point to housing market in terms of prices remaining stable or increasing, but there's also data points that could point to a decrease in prices. So
right.
If you're if you're older and, less risk averse, or you're less risk averse for whatever reason, maybe now's the time to sell if you've been thinking about it. If you don't mind taking a little more risk and maybe benefiting, more of a reward too, maybe now's the time. Maybe you wait. Anyway, in contract. So from May 1st to May 13th, 2020, 370 houses have gone into contract. In 2019, 1,154. So that's a 68% decrease in houses into contract. What would you attribute that to?
I attribute all of this, including that data point, to people being unsure.
Mm-hmm.
When uncertainty hits the market, cash sits on the sidelines.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what's happening there.
For sure. And it's also more difficult for buyers. Even though there is that demand, it's more difficult for buyers to buy because there's less supply. And even with the supply that's on the market, not everyone's comfortable letting people in their house. So it's just more difficult to get in the house and see it.
Yep.
And then closed. 352 houses have closed 2020 and 785 in 2019. That's a 54% decrease. So it's interesting. It used to be that the new listings was 60, between 60 and 80% decrease, and the in contract and close, which are lagging indicators, were lower, maybe 40, 50, 60% decreases. Now those are higher percentage drops, the in contract and close. So we're starting to see the impact that took place from March 15th when the shutdown began, and April and May are now starting to impact, what's going into contract and what's closing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lagging indicators are showing what was happening 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Bottom line, I guess, if I had to wrap it up, is there's still activity in the market because it's a basic need and people are going to buy and sell. However, that activity has dropped tremendously. But because of the low supply and low rates, housing prices are pretty stable right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think it's going to be a ripple effect. I don't think we're going to see the real effects of this for a few months out, and we'll really start talking about what's happening with those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But in either case, I think Long Island is actually in for a really good, 6 to 12 months ahead of us, because we're going to be seeing a lot of that New York City crowd come to the island.
For sure. That just makes me nervous for New York State, though, because what percentage of New York State's tax revenues came from Manhattan?
It doesn't matter. And in 3 to 4 years, we will have adjusted, and Manhattan is Manhattan. It will be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's the next 3 or 4 years
that
we're going to see a lot of changes. And I think you're going to see a lot of people coming to the island from the city.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we're in a good position. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, guys. Just as always, we are the Pesce Lanzillotta team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Lafayette International Realty. Our phone number here is 516-888-9711. That's 516-888-9711. Our email is info@pl-team.com. That's info@pl-team.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.